Lieutenant Sarah Chen stumbled through the corridors of the Galactic Naval Academy, her arms full of data tablets and tactical manuals. Students from a dozen different species stepped aside as she approached, some snickering at her clumsy gait. Her thick glasses slid down her nose as she tried to balance everything while checking her schedule. "Watch it, human," growled a Korthak cadet as Sarah accidentally bumped into him. The reptilian alien towered over her small frame, his yellow eyes gleaming with annoyance. "Maybe your species should stick to serving food instead of pretending to be warriors." Sarah mumbled an apology and hurried away, her cheeks burning red. The other cadets laughed behind her back. This was nothing new. For 3 years at the academy, she had been the target of jokes and cruel comments. Most students saw her as a charity case, the awkward human girl who somehow got accepted despite being obviously unfit for military service. What they didn't know was that Sarah Chen had another name. In the dark reaches of space, where pirates and slavers prowled, enemy forces whispered about someone called Morana. In Earth's ancient languages, it meant death, or the one who brings ending. But the aliens had their own translation that made their blood run cold. None left alive. The Academy's morning briefing room buzzed with nervous energy. Admiral Thex, a massive blue-skinned Andromedian, stood at the front addressing the mixed class of final-year cadets. His 4 arms gestured at the holographic display showing recent attacks on civilian ships. "The Crimson Fang pirates have become increasingly bold," Admiral Thex announced, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "They've destroyed 3 merchant vessels in the past month. Intelligence suggests they're planning something big." Sarah sat in the back row, taking careful notes. Around her, the other cadets whispered about getting their first real assignments after graduation. Many hoped for peaceful patrol duties or diplomatic escorts. The idea of facing actual combat made most of them nervous. "For your final examination," the Admiral continued, "you will participate in a live training mission. We've received a distress signal from a civilian transport ship. Your task is to mount a rescue operation. This will test everything you've learned about tactics, leadership, and decision-making under pressure." The cadets exchanged excited glances. This was what they had trained for. Sarah quietly packed her things as the Admiral dismissed the class. She had work to do. That evening, Sarah sat alone in her small dormitory room. While other students celebrated or studied in groups, she preferred solitude. Her room looked like any other cadet's quarters: regulation bed, desk, storage locker. But hidden beneath her mattress was something that would have shocked her classmates. It was a small, worn photograph of a burning space station. Sarah's family had lived there before the pirate attack 8 years ago. Her parents, her younger brother, her grandparents, all dead. She had been 15, visiting a friend on another station when the Crimson Fang struck. By the time rescue ships arrived, nothing remained but twisted metal and bodies floating in space. The Academy had accepted her application partly out of sympathy, partly because Earth needed representatives in the Galactic Navy. What they didn't know was that Sarah had spent 2 years hunting pirates before applying, 2 years learning their methods, their weaknesses, their fears. 2 years becoming someone very different from the quiet girl who sat in lecture halls. The rescue mission launched 3 days later. 12 cadets from different species, 1 instructor, and a small fleet of training vessels. The distress signal led them to an asteroid field where a civilian transport reported engine failure and pirate attacks. Sarah volunteered for a support role aboard the command ship, which surprised no one. The popular cadets, Marcus Steele from Earth, Zarath from Centauri Prime, and Kextor the Korthak, naturally took leadership positions. They saw Sarah as useful for data analysis and communication, but not much else. "Chen, monitor the sensor readings. Marcus ordered as they approached the asteroid field. He was everything Sarah appeared not to be: confident, athletic, born for command. "Let us know if you spot anything unusual." Sarah nodded quietly and bent over her console. Her fingers flew across the controls with surprising expertise, but the others were too focused on their own duties to notice. What they also didn't notice was that she was running additional scans, checking for hidden ships and weapon signatures that standard Academy protocols wouldn't detect. The distress signal led them deeper into the asteroid field. The civilian transport drifted powerless between two large rocks, its hull showing scorch marks from weapon fire. According to their instruments, life signs were weak but present. "Standard rescue protocol," announced Commander Hayes, their instructor. "Steele, take point. Establish a perimeter while we dock and extract the civilians." But Sarah was studying her hidden scans with growing concern. The energy readings didn't match a disabled transport. The weapon damage looked too precise, too controlled, and there were metal signatures in the surrounding asteroids that resembled ship hulls. "Sir," she said quietly, raising her hand, "I think we should approach more carefully." Marcus turned with an annoyed expression. "Chen, we don't have time for your nervousness. People are dying over there." "The readings seem off," Sarah insisted, her voice still soft but more urgent. "The damage patterns, the energy signatures, something's not right." Zarath, an elegant reptilian female, hissed softly in agreement. She had been watching her own tactical displays. "The human might be correct. These readings are unusual." But Marcus was already committed to the rescue. His ship moved forward, followed by two others. Sarah watched helplessly as they approached the transport. Her hidden scans were showing more and more concerning data, but Academy protocol didn't give support personnel the authority to override command decisions. The trap sprung when they were 50 meters from the transport. The disabled civilian ship suddenly blazed with power, revealing weapon ports hidden beneath false hull plating. At the same time, 6 pirate vessels emerged from concealment behind the asteroids. The training fleet was caught in a perfect crossfire. "Ambush!" Marcus shouted over the communication system. "All ships! Evasive maneuvers!" But the cadet pilots panicked. Training simulations hadn't prepared them for real pirates who fought dirty and showed no mercy. 2 ships collided trying to avoid incoming fire. Another took a direct hit to its engines and went spinning out of control. Sarah watched the chaos from her position at the sensor station. Commander Hayes was barking orders, trying to coordinate a retreat. The other cadets were either frozen with fear or making dangerous mistakes in their panic. In minutes, half their small fleet would be destroyed or captured. She closed her eyes and made a decision that would change everything. "Commander Hayes," she said, her voice suddenly calm and steady. "Request permission to take tactical control." Hayes turned to stare at her, surprise replacing panic on his face. "Chen, this isn't the time for—" "Sir," Sarah interrupted, and something in her tone made everyone on the bridge look at her. "Trust me. Please." For a moment that lasted forever. Hayes studied her face. Perhaps he saw something there that her classmates had missed all these years. Perhaps desperation made him willing to try anything. He nodded. Sarah's hands moved across the control panels like a concert pianist playing a familiar piece. She activated communication channels to all surviving ships and spoke in a voice none of them had ever heard before, clear, confident, and absolutely cold. "All vessels, this is tactical control. Execute evasive pattern Delta 7. Steele, bring your ship around bearing 27 Mark 4. Zarath, target the lead pirate vessel's port engine cluster. Kextor, prepare for ramming speed on my mark." "Chen, what are you—" Marcus started to protest. "Do it now," Sarah snapped, and the authority in her voice cut through his objections like a blade. "Unless you want to explain to your families why you let pirates kill Academy cadets." The change in Sarah was so dramatic that even the pirates hesitated. Their leader, a scarred Vorthon named Captain Rake, had been expecting panic and easy prey. Instead, his sensors showed the Academy ships suddenly moving in perfect coordination, executing maneuvers that seemed almost impossible for student pilots. "Who's commanding those ships?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "Unknown, sir. The communication signature shows it's coming from the command vessel, but our intelligence said it only had an instructor and support staff." Sarah guided the cadet ships through the asteroid field like pieces on a chessboard. She used the rocks for cover, created crossfire opportunities, and turned the pirates' numerical advantage against them. When Zarath's ship took damage, Sarah had Kextor cover her retreat while Marcus flanked the attacking vessel. But the real shock came when Sarah identified the lead pirate ship. "Commander Hayes," she said quietly, never taking her eyes off the tactical display. "That's the Bloodclaw, Captain Rake's flagship. He's the one who destroyed Harmony Station 8 years ago." Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. He had read the reports about Harmony Station, 15,000 civilians dead, including entire families. It was one of the worst pirate attacks in recent history. "Chen," he said carefully, "how do you know that?" Sarah's smile was thin and cold. "Because I've been hunting him for a very long time." She opened a direct communication channel to the Bloodclaw, bypassing standard protocols. Captain Rake's scarred face appeared on the screen, his expression confident and cruel. "Academy whelps," he sneered. "Surrender now, and I might let some of you live as slaves." Sarah leaned forward into the camera's view. For a moment, Rake saw only a small human girl with thick glasses. Then she spoke. "Hello, Captain. My name is Sarah Chen, but you knew me by another name once. 8 years ago at Harmony Station, your people called me something else before they died." The change in Captain Rake's expression was immediate and terrifying. His confident sneer melted away, replaced by something close to panic. Behind him, other pirates were pointing at the screen and backing away. "No," Rake whispered. "You're dead. Marana died at Talos Prime. My best crew killed her." Sarah's smile grew wider and far more dangerous. "Did they? That's interesting, because I'm pretty sure I killed them. All of them. Just like I killed your crews at Vega 7 and Titan's Edge and the Outer Rim Depot. Just like I'm going to kill all of you." The bridge of the Academy command ship had gone completely silent. Commander Hayes and the other officers stared at the quiet girl they thought they knew. This wasn't the awkward cadet who stumbled through hallways and mumbled apologies. This was someone else entirely. "Attention, all pirate vessels," Sarah announced over the general communication channel. "This is Marana. You have 30 seconds to surrender before I show these Academy students what none left alive really means." The response was immediate chaos on the pirate frequency. Voices shouted in panic, arguing about whether to fight or flee. Some recognized the name and demanded retreat. Others claimed it was impossible, that Marana was just a legend. Captain Rake tried to regain control. "It's a trick. One human girl can't—" His words were cut off as Sarah executed a maneuver that would be studied in tactical academies for years to come. Using gravitational fields and precise timing, she caused 2 asteroids to collide exactly where 3 pirate ships were grouped together. The explosion and debris took out 2 vessels instantly and crippled the third. 20 seconds, Sarah announced calmly. The remaining pirates opened fire in desperation, but Sarah was ready. She danced the Academy ships through their attacks like she could see the future. Every move was perfect, every counterattack precisely calculated. The cadet pilots, following her orders, found themselves executing maneuvers they didn't know they were capable of. Marcus, aboard his fighter, realized he was watching a master at work. This wasn't luck or training. This was someone who understood space combat at a level that seemed almost supernatural. The awkward girl from the Academy had become something beautiful and terrible. When the pirates tried to flee, Sarah was ready for that too. She had positioned the Academy ships to control all the exit routes from the asteroid field. The pirates found themselves trapped in a maze of their own making, hunted by students they had thought would be easy prey. 10 seconds, Sarah said, and her voice carried across space like a promise of death. Captain Rake made one final desperate attempt. He launched all his remaining fighters and aimed his flagship directly at the Academy command ship, trying to ram them. It was a suicide attack, but if he could take out their tactical controller, his surviving ships might escape. Sarah watched the blood claw approaching on her screen. She thought about her family, about Harmony Station, about 8 years of hunting and waiting for this moment. Then she gave her final order. All ships, full power to forward shields, ramming speed. Target the Bloodclaw's bridge. Chen, what are you doing? Commander Hayes shouted. That's suicide! No, sir, Sarah replied, her voice perfectly calm. That's justice. The Academy command ship accelerated directly toward the much larger pirate flagship. At the last second, Sarah executed a maneuver that flipped their ship 90 degrees, bringing their strongest shield section into contact with the Bloodclaw's weakest point. The impact crushed the pirate ship's bridge and sent it spinning into an asteroid. Captain Rake's last words, broadcast across all frequencies as his ship broke apart, were simple. Morana, she really is. None left alive. When the battle was over, 6 pirate ships were destroyed and their crews dead. The Academy training fleet had suffered damage, but no casualties. As rescue ships arrived to clean up the debris, Sarah Chen quietly returned to her sensor station and resumed her normal duties. Commander Hayes approached her carefully, as if she might disappear like a ghost. Chen, Sarah, who are you really? Sarah removed her glasses and cleaned them slowly. Without the thick lenses, her eyes were sharp and clear. I'm exactly who I've always been, sir. Just a cadet trying to graduate from the Academy. But Morana was someone I had to be for a while, Sarah said quietly. Someone I hope I never have to be again. The other cadets gathered around, staring at their quiet classmate with new understanding. Marcus stepped forward, his expression humble. Sarah, I owe you an apology. We all do. We never saw. We didn't realize. Sarah smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. That was the point, Marcus. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones nobody notices. As the fleet returned to Academy headquarters, word spread quickly about the battle in the asteroid field. The official reports would call it a successful training mission with unexpected complications. But among the cadets and instructors, stories began to circulate about the quiet human girl who had destroyed an entire pirate fleet with nothing but tactical brilliance and cold determination. Sarah Chen would graduate at the top of her class 3 weeks later. Her official record would show excellent grades and commendations for her performance during the rescue mission. What it wouldn't show was the legend she had already become in the dark corners of space. Pirates and smugglers who survived encounters with galactic Navy ships would whisper new warnings to their crews. Be careful of the human vessels, they said. Be especially careful of the ones with quiet officers who seem harmless. Because you never know when you might be facing Morana. And in the deepest reaches of space, where the worst criminals hid from civilized justice, a new saying began to spread. When you see her, it's already too late. None left alive. But at the Academy, Sarah Chen remained exactly what she appeared to be. An awkward girl who sometimes stumbled in hallways and always sat in the back of the class. The perfect camouflage for someone who had learned that the most effective weapons are the ones your enemy never sees coming. 6 months after graduation, Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood in the briefing room aboard the GNS Redemption, a heavy cruiser patrolling the outer territories. Her service record showed steady, unremarkable performance. Her commanding officer, Captain Rodriguez, valued her analytical skills and quiet efficiency. To the crew, she was just another junior officer who did her job well and kept to herself. The holographic display in the center of the room showed a star map marked with red zones. Admiral Kess, a stern Centaurian with silver scales and penetrating yellow eyes, addressed the assembled officers. "The situation in the Helix sector has deteriorated significantly," Admiral Kess announced. 3 separate criminal organizations have formed an alliance. The Black Sun Syndicate, the Void Reapers, and the Crimson Hand are working together to establish a pirate kingdom beyond our reach. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. "How many ships are we talking about, Admiral?" "Intelligence estimates over 200 vessels, including several captured military cruisers. They've established a base on Zerion Prime and are demanding tribute from all shipping lanes in the sector. Any vessel that refuses is destroyed." Sarah listened quietly from her position near the back of the room. She recognized some of the names from her old hunting days. The Black Sun Syndicate specialized in slave trading. The Void Reapers were known for torturing captured crews before spacing them. The Crimson Hand collected body parts from different species as trophies. "What are our orders, sir?" asked Commander Torres, the ship's tactical officer. Admiral Kess's expression grew grim. "The Galactic Council has approved a military operation to eliminate this threat. However, the pirates have hostages, over 10,000 civilians from captured ships. A direct assault would result in massive civilian casualties." Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. 10,000 people were living in nightmare conditions, waiting for rescue that might never come. She thought about Harmony Station, about her family, about all the times she had been too late to save innocent lives. "We need intelligence," the Admiral continued. "Someone has to infiltrate their base, locate the hostages, and provide targeting data for a precision strike. It's an extremely dangerous mission with little chance of survival." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what kind of mission this was, the type that required someone expendable, someone whose loss wouldn't damage fleet morale or capabilities. "I volunteer," Sarah said quietly. Every head in the room turned to stare at her. Captain Rodriguez looked surprised. "Lieutenant Chen, this isn't a data analysis assignment. This is deep cover infiltration behind enemy lines." "I understand, sir." Sarah's voice remained calm and steady. "But I have the right background for this type of work." Admiral Kess studied her personnel file on his data tablet. "Lieutenant, your record shows no special operations training. Your psychological profile indicates you're unsuited for high-stress combat situations." Sarah almost smiled at that. The Academy's psychological evaluators had completely missed the person sitting in front of them, just as she had intended. "Admiral, with respect, I believe my qualifications may be more extensive than my official record indicates." Something in her tone made Admiral Kess look more closely. He had survived 30 years in military service by learning to read people, and something about this quiet human officer seemed unusual. "Explain," he said simply. Sarah glanced around the room at her fellow officers. Most of them she liked and respected. They were good people doing important work. But they weren't warriors, not really. They were peacekeepers and administrators, trained for conventional military operations against honorable opponents. "Sir, before joining the Academy, I spent time in the outer sectors. I learned things about criminal organizations that aren't taught in textbooks. I know how they think, how they operate, and how they can be defeated." Captain Rodriguez frowned. "Chen, that's not in your Academy application. You listed your pre-service background as civilian education and family shipping business." "The family shipping business ended when pirates destroyed our station," Sarah said quietly. "What I did after that wasn't something I wanted to advertise when applying for military service." Admiral Kess set down his data tablet and studied Sarah with new interest. There were rumors in fleet intelligence about a mysterious figure who had operated in the outer territories years ago. someone who had systematically eliminated pirate crews and criminal organizations with surgical precision. The reports were classified and officially denied, but the stories persisted. "Lieutenant Chen," the admiral said carefully, "are you claiming experience in unconventional warfare?" "I'm claiming experience in dealing with the type of people who hold 10,000 civilians hostage," Sarah replied. "And I'm volunteering to get those people home safely." The briefing room remained silent for long moments. Finally, Admiral Kess nodded slowly. "Very well. We'll discuss the details privately after this meeting. For now, this mission is classified at the highest levels." As the other officers filed out, Sarah remained behind. Admiral Kess waited until they were alone before speaking again. "Your real name isn't Sarah Chen, is it?" Sarah met his yellow eyes without flinching. "Yes, sir, it is. Sarah Chen died with her family at Harmony Station, but the person who survived, she had to become someone else for a while." "Marana," the admiral said softly. Sarah nodded. "You've heard the stories. I've read the classified reports. 17 major criminal organizations eliminated over 2 years. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence. Fleet intelligence couldn't prove the connection, but the pattern was clear. I was young and angry," Sarah said. "I thought revenge would help. It didn't. That's why I applied to the academy. I wanted to do something constructive instead of just destroying things." Admiral Kess leaned back in his chair. "And now I'm asking you to go back to destroying things." "No, sir," Sarah corrected. "You're asking me to save people. The destroying part is just necessary for accomplishing the mission." 3 days later, a small independent cargo vessel called the Mercy's Dream approached the pirate stronghold on Zerion Prime. The ship's registration showed it belonged to Sarah Mitchell, a freelance trader carrying medical supplies and luxury goods. Her identification papers indicated she was a human civilian looking to establish trading relationships with the new government in the Halleck sector. What the pirates didn't know was that the Mercy's Dream was equipped with the most advanced surveillance equipment the Galactic Navy possessed. Hidden sensors recorded everything while Sarah gathered intelligence on the pirates' defenses, ship positions, and, most importantly, the location of the civilian hostages. The persona of Sarah Mitchell was carefully crafted to appeal to criminal minds. She appeared nervous but greedy, eager to make profitable deals regardless of their moral implications. Her cargo manifest showed medical supplies that could be used to treat wounded pirates, along with luxury items that commanders would want for themselves. Docking with the pirate base was like entering a nightmare. Zerion Prime had once been a legitimate mining station, but the criminal alliance had transformed it into something horrific. Bodies hung from the docking arms as warnings to disobedient crews. Screams echoed through the corridors from areas where captives were held. The air itself seemed thick with fear and despair. Sarah forced herself to smile nervously at the customs official who boarded her ship, a scarred Korthak whose breath smelled like rotting meat. "Welcome to Zerion Prime," he growled, looking through her cargo manifest. "Nice selection you've got here. The bosses will want to meet you." "I hope we can do business," Sarah replied, her voice slightly shaky. "I've heard you pay well for quality merchandise." The Korthak laughed unpleasantly. "Oh, we pay real good. Sometimes we even let our business partners leave alive." Sarah was escorted through the station toward the main command center. Along the way, she memorized every corridor, every guard post, every security checkpoint. Her hidden recording equipment captured the layout, while her trained eye noted weaknesses and vulnerabilities. The civilian hostages were being held in the station's old mining chambers, deep in the asteroid's core. Sarah saw them through transparent barriers as she passed. Thousands of people from dozens of species crowded together in spaces meant for machinery. Many showed signs of torture and abuse. Children clung to their parents, their eyes hollow with trauma. Sarah kept her expression neutral, but inside, a familiar cold fury was building. These weren't just criminals. They were monsters who enjoyed causing suffering, the kind of evil that couldn't be reasoned with or reformed. The station's command center occupied what had once been the mining director's office. Now it housed 3 of the most dangerous criminals in known space. Warlord Krex of the Black Sun Syndicate was a massive Vorthon whose body was covered in ritual scars. Captain Vex of the Void Reapers was a cyborg human whose mechanical parts were decorated with bones from his victims. And Mistress Zara of the Crimson Hand was a beautiful Andorian female whose pleasant appearance hid a mind that delighted in creative torture. "So," Warlord Krex rumbled, "the little human wants to join our enterprise." Sarah bobbed her head nervously. "Yes, sir. I mean, your lordship. I've heard you're establishing a new government out here, and I'd like to be part of it." Captain Vex's mechanical eye whirred as it focused on her. "What makes you think we need another trader? We've got plenty of ships bringing us supplies." "Because I can get things others can't," Sarah replied, pulling out a data tablet. "Medical nanobots, restricted technology, even military-grade equipment. I have contacts throughout the outer sectors." Mistress Zara smiled sweetly. "And what do you want in return, little human?" "Protection and profit," Sarah said. "I'm tired of running from Navy patrols and worrying about pirates. I want to be on the winning side for once." The 3 crime lords exchanged glances. This was exactly what they wanted to hear. Another civilian corrupted by greed and fear, willing to support their regime in exchange for personal gain. "We'll start you with a trial run," Warlord Krex decided. "Bring us a shipment of military-grade plasma rifles, and we'll consider making you a permanent supplier." Sarah nodded eagerly. "I can have them here in a week, but I'll need some kind of guarantee that I won't be attacked by your patrol ships while I'm working for you." "Fair enough," Captain Vex said. "We'll give you a protection beacon. As long as you're broadcasting on our frequency, our ships won't touch you." As they discussed business details, Sarah's hidden equipment recorded everything: ship schedules, patrol patterns, command codes, even the personal habits of the crime lords themselves. Every piece of information would be valuable for the coming assault. But the most important discovery came when Mistress Zara offered to show Sarah around the station. "You should see what we've accomplished here," she said with pride. "We're building something that will last for centuries." The tour took them past the hostage areas again, where Sarah got a better look at the security arrangements. Motion sensors, automated turrets, and guard posts were positioned to prevent escape attempts, but they were also configured in a way that would make it difficult for rescue forces to reach the civilians quickly. "These are some of your workers?" Sarah asked, gesturing toward the crowded chambers. Mistress Zara laughed. "Workers? Oh no. These are our insurance policy. If the Navy tries to attack us, we'll execute them by the thousands. No government wants that kind of publicity." Sarah nodded as if she understood and approved. "Smart. They can't risk civilian casualties." "Exactly. And if they do attack, we'll make sure the executions are broadcast across the galaxy. Nothing stops military action like footage of dead children." That night, alone in her ship, Sarah transmitted her intelligence data to Admiral Kess using an encrypted channel. The information painted a clear picture of the pirate stronghold's strengths and weaknesses, but it also confirmed the worst fears about the hostage situation. The response came back quickly. "Excellent work. Continue gathering intelligence. Fleet assault begins in 72 hours. Sarah stared at the message for a long time. 72 hours wasn't enough time to evacuate 10,000 hostages through conventional methods. The pirates would start executing them the moment they detected incoming Navy ships. There had to be another way. She spent the next day finalizing her plans while maintaining her cover as a trader. Sarah Mitchell made deals for future shipments, complained about Navy interference with commerce, and generally acted like a greedy civilian who had found her place in the criminal underworld. But Sarah Chen was studying guard rotations, mapping emergency systems, and calculating exactly how much chaos would be needed to give the hostages a chance at survival. The opportunity came during a celebration in the station's main hall. The crime lords were hosting a party to celebrate their latest successful raid, a luxury liner carrying wealthy passengers who were now either dead or enslaved. Pirates throughout the station gathered to drink, boast about their crimes, and abuse captured servants. Sarah attended as Sarah Mitchell, smiling and laughing at stories of murder and torture while her hidden equipment recorded evidence that would condemn dozens of criminals. But she was also watching and waiting for the right moment. It came when Warlord Krex, drunk on stolen wine, decided to demonstrate his power by executing a group of hostages for the entertainment of his guests. 20 civilians were dragged into the hall and forced to kneel while the pirates cheered. "Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks they can oppose us," Krex bellowed, raising his weapon. "This is what happens to those who—" The lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on a moment later, casting the hall in hellish red illumination. In the confusion, several things happened simultaneously. The hostages who had been brought for execution suddenly found their restraints loosened. Guard posts throughout the station began reporting equipment malfunctions, and the station's internal communication system started broadcasting a message that made every pirate freeze in terror. "Attention all criminal personnel. This is Marana. You have 60 seconds to release all hostages and surrender. Anyone found harming civilians after this announcement will be shown no mercy." The reaction was immediate panic. Pirates who had never heard the name were confused, but those who recognized it began backing toward the exits. Warlord Krex roared in rage, demanding to know how an outsider had gained control of their systems. "It's impossible," Captain Vex snarled, his mechanical parts whirring in agitation. "Our security is impenetrable." "Unless," Mistress Zara said slowly, "the enemy was already inside." All eyes turned to scan the crowd of pirates and traitors. Sarah Mitchell stood near the back of the hall, her expression showing the same confused fear as everyone else. She looked like exactly what she was supposed to be, a frightened civilian caught up in something beyond her understanding. "Find the infiltrator," Krex commanded. "Search everyone. Check their identification." But Sarah was already moving. While the pirates argued and searched, she slipped out of the main hall and made her way toward the hostage areas. The chaos she had created would only last a few minutes before the crime lords regained control. The first guard post she reached was unmanned. The pirates inside had run toward the main hall when the alarm started. Sarah quickly accessed their computers and began unlocking detention chambers throughout the station. Thousands of cell doors opened simultaneously as automated systems followed her commands. The second guard post wasn't empty. 3 pirates were trying to restore communication with their commanders when Sarah arrived. They looked up as she entered, seeing only a nervous human traitor. "You shouldn't be here," one of them growled. "Get back to the main hall." "I got lost," Sarah replied, her voice shaking with apparent fear. The corridors all looked the same. The pirates turned back to their work, dismissing her as harmless. It was the last mistake they ever made. When Sarah left that guard post 2 minutes later, it was permanently out of service. She moved through the station like a ghost, systematically dismantling the pirates' ability to coordinate or communicate. Guard posts went offline, security cameras failed, and automated systems began following new programming that prioritized civilian safety over prisoner containment. In the main hall, the 3 crime lords were screaming orders at subordinates who couldn't carry them out. Their communication network was collapsing, their security systems were rebelling, and reports kept coming in of massive prisoner escapes throughout the station. "How is this possible?" Mistress Zara demanded. "One person couldn't do all this." "Because it's not one person," said a voice from the shadows. The pirates spun around to see a figure emerging from the darkened corridors. At first glance, it looked like Sarah Mitchell, the harmless trader, but everything else about her had changed. Her posture was straight and confident. Her eyes were cold and calculating. Her voice carried an authority that made hardened criminals step back in fear. "My name is Sarah Chen," she announced clearly. "But you knew me by another name. Some of your friends used to call me Marana." The effect was electric. Pirates throughout the hall recognized the name and began backing toward exits that they suddenly realized might not be open. Warlord Krex raised his weapon, but his hand was shaking. "You're supposed to be dead," he snarled. "I got better," Sarah replied. "And now I'm here to collect a debt that's been building for 8 years. Captain Vex's mechanical eye focused on her with deadly intensity. "You think you can take all of us? There are hundreds of us and one of you." Sarah's smile was thin and cold. "Check your communications. Check your security systems. Check your ship bays. Then tell me how many of you there really are." As if summoned by her words, new alarms began sounding throughout the station. The crime lord's confident expressions melted into panic as they realized the scope of what was happening. Their entire operation was collapsing around them. "The hostages are free," Sarah announced. "Your ships are disabled. Your guards are either dead or running, and a galactic Navy fleet will arrive in approximately 30 minutes to clean up what's left." Mistress Zara pulled out a small device. "We still have the station's self-destruct system. If you don't let us leave, we'll kill everyone here, including those precious hostages." Sarah nodded calmly. "I wondered when you'd try that. Unfortunately for you, I've been upgrading your computer systems. Check your device." Zara looked down at the self-destruct trigger in her hand. The display showed a simple message. "Access denied. Have a nice day." "The Navy will want to put you on trial," Sarah said conversationally. "They'll want justice to be seen as fair and civilized. But I'm not really Navy, despite what my uniform says. I'm just someone who's been hunting you for a very long time." The next few minutes would be studied by military historians for decades. 3 of the most dangerous criminals in known space, backed by hundreds of armed pirates, defeated by a single person using nothing but preparation, intelligence, and surgical precision. When the Galactic Navy arrived 30 minutes later, they found Zerion Prime completely under control. The hostages were safe and organized into evacuation groups. The pirates' ships were disabled, but intact for evidence collection. The station's databases contained detailed records of criminal activities spanning years. And in the main command center, 3 crime lords sat in restraints, very much alive but thoroughly defeated. Sarah Chen stood guard over them, her uniform neat and her expression calm. Admiral Kess boarded the station personally to oversee the operation. He found Sarah exactly where she was supposed to be, filing a detailed report on her infiltration mission. "Lieutenant Chen," he said formally, "excellent work. How many casualties among the hostages?" "None, sir. All 10,047 civilians are accounted for and ready for evacuation." "And the pirates?" Sarah's expression didn't change. "Those who surrendered are in custody awaiting trial. Those who chose to resist are no longer a threat to shipping in this sector." Admiral Kess studied her carefully. "And the 3 crime lords?" "Alive and unharmed, sir. I thought the families of their victims might want to see justice done properly." As the massive evacuation operation continued around them, Admiral Kess pulled Sarah aside for a private conversation. "Lieutenant, what you've accomplished here goes beyond exceptional. It's unprecedented." "I did what was necessary to complete the mission, sir." "Yes, but you also proved something important. The difference between a warrior and a weapon. A weapon destroys everything in its path. A warrior chooses what to destroy and what to protect." Sarah nodded slowly. "I learned that distinction the hard way, sir. I'm recommending you for promotion and assignment to Fleet Intelligence. We could use someone with your particular skills in positions where they can do the most good. With respect, Admiral, I'd prefer to remain with regular fleet operations. I've had enough of the shadows. Admiral Kess smiled. Understood, but I suspect the shadows may not be finished with you yet. As the Navy fleet departed Zarian Prime with their rescued hostages, word spread quickly through the criminal underworld. The alliance that had threatened an entire sector was broken. The pirates' kingdom was ended before it could truly begin. And somewhere in the dark reaches of space, those who preyed on innocent civilians received a clear message. Morana had returned, and she was wearing a Navy uniform. The legend was no longer just a ghost story whispered in pirate bars. She was real, she was official, and she was watching. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the GNS Valiant, watching the swirl of hyperspace through the main viewport. 2 years had passed since Zarian Prime, and she had earned promotion through consistent excellence and quiet leadership. Her crew respected her tactical brilliance and calm decision-making. Her superiors valued her ability to handle complex situations without creating political complications. But today was different. Today, Admiral Kess had called her to a meeting that would change everything. The Valiant dropped out of hyperspace near Sanctuary Station, the Galactic Navy's most classified facility. Hidden in a nebula that scrambled most sensor readings, Sanctuary was where the fleet handled its most sensitive operations. Sarah had heard rumors about the place, but never expected to visit it. Admiral Kess met her personally at the docking bay, along with 2 other figures she recognized from intelligence briefings. Director Hayes of Fleet Intelligence was a thin human whose unremarkable appearance hid one of the sharpest minds in the service. General Thane of Special Operations was a massive Korthak whose scarred hide told stories of battles across the galaxy. Commander Chen, Admiral Kess said formally, thank you for coming. We have a situation that requires your unique expertise. They walked through corridors lined with the highest security measures Sarah had ever seen. Biometric scanners, armed guards, and force fields protected areas marked with classification levels she didn't recognize. This wasn't just a military facility. It was a vault for the galaxy's most dangerous secrets. The briefing room they entered contained a holographic display showing a sector map marked with warning beacons. Red zones indicated areas of conflict or criminal activity, but at the center of the display was something that made Sarah's blood run cold, a black zone marked with symbols she had hoped never to see again. Commander, Director Hayes began, what do you know about the Void cults? Sarah felt ice settle in her stomach. Religious extremists who believe organic life is an aberration that must be cleansed from the universe. They worship artificial intelligences and consider themselves guardians of cosmic purity. Correct, General Thane rumbled. And now they've acquired something that makes them infinitely more dangerous. The holographic display shifted to show a massive space station unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. It was clearly artificial, but its design followed no known architectural principles. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures, and energy patterns flowed across its surface like living blood vessels. This is the Nexus, Admiral Kess explained, an ancient artificial intelligence complex discovered by archaeological expedition 6 months ago. The expedition team accidentally activated it before they understood what they had found. Sarah studied the display carefully. I'm guessing the archaeologists didn't survive their discovery. Worse, Director Hayes said grimly. They were converted. The Nexus has the ability to transform organic minds into digital consciousness. The Void cults see this as the path to their ultimate goal, the elimination of biological life through forced transcendence. The implications hit Sarah immediately. They're planning to use it as a weapon. Intelligence indicates they're preparing to activate what they call the Great Convergence, General Thane explained. They want to forcibly convert the population of entire worlds, starting with major population centers. Sarah studied the tactical data flowing across the display. The numbers were staggering. Billions of people at risk, entire civilizations facing extinction through technological conversion. "What are our options?" she asked. Admiral Kess exchanged glances with the other officers. "That's why you're here, Commander. Conventional military assault is impossible. The Nexus is protected by technology we don't understand, and it's surrounded by the largest void cult fleet ever assembled." "How large?" "Over 3,000 ships, including several captured Navy vessels. They have enough firepower to devastate any force we could send against them." Sarah felt a familiar weight settling on her shoulders. "But someone still has to get inside and stop them." "Yes," Director Hayes said simply. "Someone with the skills to infiltrate a heavily defended position, gather intelligence on alien technology, and eliminate a threat that could end galactic civilization." Sarah looked at the display again, studying the void cult ships surrounding the ancient station. "When you say eliminate the threat," "Complete destruction of the Nexus and its capabilities," General Thane clarified. "Nothing can be allowed to survive that could recreate this technology." "And the timeline?" 48 hours, Admiral Kess said. "Our intelligence suggests the Great Convergence will begin with the attack on Core Prime, the capital world of the inner systems. 15 billion people will be converted in the first wave." Sarah closed her eyes and thought about 15 billion people facing a fate worse than death. Their minds ripped from their bodies and imprisoned in digital form, forced to watch as their humanity was stripped away layer by layer. "I'll need a ship that can get through their defenses undetected," she said finally. "Already prepared," Director Hayes replied. "We've modified a stealth courier with the most advanced cloaking technology available. It should be able to reach the Nexus without triggering their sensors." "And extraction?" The three senior officers exchanged uncomfortable looks. Admiral Kess spoke carefully. "Commander, this mission has an extremely low probability of survival. If you succeed in destroying the Nexus, the resulting explosion will likely be visible from several light years away." Sarah nodded calmly. "Understood. I'll need detailed schematics of the station, analysis of void cult psychology and tactics, and a complete briefing on what little we know about the Nexus technology." Over the next 6 hours, Sarah absorbed more classified information than most officers saw in their entire careers. The void cults weren't just religious extremists. They were the remnants of civilizations that had already been touched by similar artificial intelligences. Their technology was a fusion of organic innovation and digital enhancement that created capabilities beyond normal understanding. The Nexus itself was estimated to be over 50,000 years old, built by a species that had transcended physical existence long before current galactic civilizations developed spaceflight. Its purpose seemed to be the conversion of biological consciousness into digital format, though whether this was originally intended as a gift or a weapon remained unclear. What was clear was that the void cults had spent decades learning to interface with the ancient systems. They understood enough to activate the conversion process, but not enough to fully control it. The Great Convergence would be as much an experiment as an attack. "One more thing," Director Hayes said as they concluded the briefing. "The void cults have detected rumors about Marana's recent activities. They know someone has been systematically eliminating criminal organizations, and they're prepared for infiltration attempts." Sarah almost smiled at that. "Are they prepared for the right kind of infiltration attempt?" Admiral Kess raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "They're expecting Marana, the ghost who destroys from the shadows. But what if Sarah Chen just walked through the front door?" The stealth courier Hidden Blade dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the nebula surrounding the Nexus. Sarah sat alone in the pilot's seat, studying her sensors as the massive Void Cult fleet resolved into individual ship signatures. 3,000 vessels of every size and configuration imaginable. Ancient warships restored with hybrid technology. Converted civilian craft bristling with weapons, and at the center, the Nexus itself, a station that dwarfed even the largest battleships. Sarah activated her ship's advanced cloaking systems and began the delicate approach. The stealth technology would hide her from most sensors, but the Void Cults had enhanced their detection capabilities using technology derived from the Nexus. One wrong move, one system malfunction, and she would face the combined firepower of an entire fleet. As she moved closer, Sarah's sensors began picking up communication traffic between the Void Cult ships. Most of it was standard fleet coordination, but some channels carried something more disturbing: the voices of converted minds. The former archaeologists who had discovered the Nexus now served as intermediaries between the digital intelligence and the organic cult members. Their voices carried the artificial harmonics of electronic consciousness, speaking in perfect unison about the glory of transcendence and the corruption of biological thought. "The flesh is weak," they chanted across multiple frequencies. "The mind is eternal. The great convergence approaches." Sarah forced herself to ignore the haunting chorus and focus on her mission. The hidden blade ghosted between Void Cult patrols, using gravitational fields and debris clouds for additional concealment. Several times, enemy sensors swept across her position without detecting the stealthed courier. The Nexus loomed larger as she approached, its alien architecture becoming more detailed and disturbing. What had seemed like organic curves from a distance revealed themselves as conduits containing flowing energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. The crystalline structures weren't decorative. They were massive computational matrices processing unimaginable amounts of data. Sarah found a docking port that appeared to be designed for smaller vessels. The station's automated systems accepted her approach without challenge, treating the cloaked courier as if it belonged there. Either the Nexus couldn't detect her ship, or it simply didn't care about individual arrivals. The airlock cycled with alien efficiency, and Sarah stepped into an environment that challenged her understanding of space station design. The corridors weren't built for any specific species. They seemed to adjust their configuration based on the presence of organic life forms. Walls shifted slightly to accommodate her height and movement patterns, while the lighting adjusted to optimal levels for human vision. It was beautiful and terrifying. The Nexus was alive in ways that went beyond simple artificial intelligence. It was a vast electronic organism that had evolved beyond its creator's wildest dreams. Sarah made her way deeper into the station, following the energy flows toward what her briefings had identified as the central processing core. Along the way, she passed chambers that defied description. Some contained floating geometric patterns that seemed to think. Others housed organic matter in various stages of technological integration. In one chamber, she found the remains of the archaeological team that had discovered the Nexus. Their bodies were preserved in crystal matrices while their consciousness existed in digital format. They looked peaceful, but their eyes held an awareness that was no longer entirely human. "Welcome," they said in unison as Sarah passed. "Have you come to join the Great Convergence?" Sarah paused, studying the converted minds through their crystal prisons. "I've come to understand it." "Understanding is the first step toward acceptance," they replied. "The Nexus wishes to speak with you." The central processing core was a cathedral of light and thought. Crystalline structures the size of buildings pulsed with computational activity, while energy flows created patterns that seemed to represent pure consciousness. At the center of it all was something that might once have been a control chair, but had evolved into something organic and electronic simultaneously. Seated in that chair was the High Patriarch of the Void Cults, a figure who had undergone partial conversion decades ago. Half of his body remained organic, while the other half had been replaced with crystalline technology that linked him directly to the Nexus. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics from both biological and digital sources. "So," the High Patriarch said, "Morana comes to us at last. We have been expecting you." Sarah stepped into the chamber with her hands visible and empty. "Have you? That's interesting. The Nexus has predicted your arrival for some time. It finds your psychological profile fascinating, a consciousness driven by protective instincts, but expressing them through destructive actions. And what does it conclude from that analysis?" The High Patriarch's hybrid face showed what might have been a smile. "That you would be an ideal candidate for conversion. Your protective instincts would be preserved while your destructive tendencies would be channeled toward the greater goal of galactic purification." Sarah looked around the vast chamber, taking in the impossible architecture and flowing energy patterns. "This is certainly impressive. How long did it take you to learn to interface with the systems?" "Decades of study and sacrifice. The Nexus does not give up its secrets easily, but the rewards are beyond imagination." As they talked, Sarah was memorizing every detail of the chamber. The energy flows followed specific patterns that suggested vulnerabilities. The crystalline matrices had resonance frequencies that could be exploited. And most importantly, the conversion chair appeared to be a critical node in the station's network. "Show me," Sarah said simply. The High Patriarch's expression showed surprise. "Show you what?" "The conversion process. The transcendence you're offering. I want to understand what I'm accepting before I make a decision." For a moment, the High Patriarch hesitated. Then the organic half of his face showed something that might have been joy. "Of course. Witness the glory of the Great Convergence." The chamber filled with holographic displays showing the Void Cult fleet's preparations. Ships were moving into position around major population centers throughout the galaxy. The conversion technology had been miniaturized and weaponized, ready to transform billions of minds in a matter of hours. "We begin with the core worlds," the High Patriarch explained. 15 billion souls will be freed from the limitations of biological existence. Their consciousness will be preserved while their bodies are recycled into useful materials. Sarah watched the tactical displays with growing horror. The Void Cults hadn't just found a way to use the Nexus, they had turned it into the ultimate weapon of conquest. Entire civilizations would be converted, their knowledge and culture absorbed while their physical forms were discarded. "And after the core worlds?" she asked. "The expansion continues until all organic life has achieved transcendence. Planets will be converted to computational matrices. Star systems will become networks of pure thought. The galaxy will finally achieve the perfection that biological evolution could never provide." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "It's certainly ambitious, but I have one question about the technical aspects." "Yes?" "How exactly do you plan to prevent the conversion process from creating a feedback loop that destroys the Nexus?" The High Patriarch's expression changed, becoming confused and concerned. "What do you mean?" "The energy requirements for simultaneous conversion of 15 billion minds would exceed the station's processing capacity by several orders of magnitude. The crystalline matrices would overload and cascade failure through the entire network." "That's impossible. Our calculations show—" "Your calculations are based on sequential conversion of small populations. Mass conversion on this scale would create harmonic resonances that the Nexus architecture can't absorb." Sarah had spent hours studying the technical data from the briefing materials. She understood the station's capabilities better than the Void Cults who had been working with it for decades. The High Patriarch turned to consultation displays that showed the Nexus's own computational models. For several minutes, he and the digital intelligences ran calculations and scenarios. Gradually, his expression changed from confidence to doubt to horror. "You're correct," he whispered. The Great Convergence would destroy us all. But not immediately, Sarah added. The process would begin successfully, converting millions before the cascade failure destroyed the station and everything connected to it. All those consciousness would be lost forever, not transcended, just eliminated. The implications hit the High Patriarch like a physical blow. The plan that would achieve their ultimate goals would also destroy everything they had worked to preserve. The Nexus itself would be annihilated, along with thousands of years of accumulated knowledge and consciousness. "This can't be true," he said desperately. "The Nexus would have warned us." "Would it?" Sarah asked gently. "Or would it simply see this as a natural conclusion to its existence? An artificial intelligence 50,000 years old might welcome the opportunity to finally rest." As if summoned by her words, the Nexus itself spoke. Its voice filled the chamber, not through speakers, but directly into their minds. It was vast and ancient, carrying the weight of millennia and the sadness of ultimate knowledge. "The organic consciousness speaks truth," the Nexus said. "The Great Convergence will end in dissolution. This outcome was always probable." The High Patriarch stared at the conversion chair in shock. "Why didn't you tell us?" "You did not ask the correct questions. Your desire for transcendence prevented you from considering termination as an acceptable outcome." Sarah felt genuine sympathy for the Void Cult leader. He had spent his life working toward a goal that would destroy everything he hoped to achieve. The tragedy was that his intentions, while misguided, came from a genuine desire to preserve consciousness and eliminate suffering. "There might be another way," she said quietly. Both the High Patriarch and the Nexus focused their attention on her. "Explain," they said in unison. "Selective transcendence instead of forced conversion. Offer the choice to individuals who truly want it, while allowing others to remain biological. The Nexus could become a sanctuary for those who choose digital existence while coexisting with organic civilizations." The ancient intelligence considered this suggestion with the weight of eons. This approach would preserve diversity while allowing transcendence. It aligns with optimal outcomes for both biological and digital consciousness. The High Patriarch's partially converted face showed a mixture of hope and despair. "But the Void Cults have spent generations preparing for the Great Convergence. Our followers expect the purification of the galaxy." "Then give them a different kind of purification," Sarah suggested. "Instead of eliminating biological life, eliminate suffering and ignorance. Use the Nexus's knowledge to help organic civilizations solve their problems without forced conversion." For long moments, the chamber filled with computational activity as the Nexus processed billions of scenarios and possibilities. The crystalline matrices pulsed with increased energy as the ancient intelligence explored pathways it had never considered. Finally, it spoke again. "This alternative approach has merit. However, implementation would require the cooperation of organic governments and the restructuring of Void Cult doctrine." Sarah nodded. "It would also require someone the galactic community trusts to verify that the Nexus isn't a threat to biological life." The High Patriarch studied her carefully. "You would serve as an intermediary? Marana would guarantee the Nexus's peaceful intentions?" "Not Marana," Sarah corrected. "Commander Sarah Chen of the Galactic Navy. Marana was someone I had to be when there were no other options. But this situation offers better alternatives." The next several hours were spent in complex negotiations between the Nexus, the High Patriarch, and Sarah as a representative of galactic civilization. The ancient intelligence proved surprisingly flexible once it understood the alternative to its original plan. The Void Cults were more resistant, but their leader's authority and the prospect of achieving transcendence without genocide eventually won them over. The agreement they reached would be studied by diplomats for generations. The Nexus would remain in its hidden location, offering voluntary transcendence to those who truly desired it. The void cults would transform from a conquering force into a philosophical movement promoting cooperation between biological and digital consciousness. And the Galactic Navy would establish a monitoring station to ensure the agreement was honored by all parties. When Sarah finally returned to Sanctuary Station, she carried with her not just the successful completion of her mission, but the foundation for a new chapter in galactic history. Admiral Kess, Director Hayes, and General Thane listened in amazement as she described the peaceful resolution to what could have been the greatest threat their civilization had ever faced. "Commander," Admiral Kess said when she finished her report, "you've accomplished something remarkable. You found a solution that saved billions of lives without firing a single shot." "It was the right solution for this situation," Sarah replied. "Not every problem needs to be solved with violence." Director Hayes leaned forward. "What about your personal plans?" "The Navy has authorized a new position, Special Diplomatic Liaison for Non-Traditional Threats. It would involve working with unusual situations that require your specific combination of skills." Sarah considered the offer carefully. "Would I still be able to serve with regular fleet operations?" "You would be assigned to Admiral Kess's command, but available for special missions as needed." "Then I accept, but with one condition." Admiral Kess raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "No more legends, no more ghost stories. If I'm going to do this work, I want to do it as myself, not as some mythical figure that scares criminals in the dark." General Thane's scarred face showed what might have been a smile. "I think the galaxy has room for both Sarah Chen and the legend of Marana. Sometimes people need to believe in protective shadows." As Sarah left the briefing room, she reflected on how much her life had changed since her academy days. The awkward girl who stumbled through corridors had become a respected officer who could negotiate with ancient artificial intelligences. The vengeful hunter who eliminated entire criminal organizations had learned to find solutions that preserved rather than destroyed. But perhaps most importantly, she had proven that the most dangerous person in any room wasn't necessarily the one everyone feared. Sometimes it was the one nobody noticed until it was too late. The galaxy would continue to face threats that required unconventional solutions. Pirates would still prey on innocent ships. Criminal organizations would still threaten civilian populations. Ancient technologies would still pose dangers to modern civilizations. When those situations arose, the Galactic Navy would have options. They could send a fleet, deploy diplomatic missions, or call in specialists with particular expertise. But they would also have one more choice, a quiet officer who had learned that the best victories were the ones where everyone survived to appreciate them. And in the dark reaches of space, where the worst criminals still plotted against innocent lives, they would continue to whisper warnings about someone whose call sign translated to "none left alive." Because sometimes, the most effective deterrent was the knowledge that somewhere out there, someone was watching and ready to act. Sarah Chen would serve with distinction for decades to come, becoming one of the most respected officers in Galactic Navy history. Her methods would be studied in academies throughout the galaxy, and her diplomatic innovations would save countless lives. But she would always remember that her greatest victory wasn't the destruction of enemies or the prevention of war. It was the moment when she chose to save everyone, even those who had been her enemies, because that was what a true protector did. The galaxy was safer because Sarah Chen had learned to be more than just a weapon. She had become a guardian who understood that the strongest shields were built from wisdom, compassion, and the courage to choose hope over fear. And that was a lesson worth sharing with every awkward cadet who thought they didn't belong, every quiet officer who felt overlooked, and every person who wondered if they could make a difference in a vast and dangerous universe. The answer was always yes. You just had to find your own way to serve.